It was looking so good for Lamar Jackson to be the 2024-2025 NFL MVP until it wasn't. Josh Allen wins the award. We talk about how this all happened, why it all happened, and Lamar Jackson being unequivocally snubbed from the award coming up next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of Locked On Ravens, or daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here tonight, about 11 p.m. Eastern time. If you're with us live, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, part of your night, your first listen, or even your last listen of the day as you head into tomorrow. Free and available for you on all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form, where you can follow along and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Tonight's edition of Locked On Ravens is presented by PrizePicks and brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. I appreciate everybody for being here. Again, this is a late night stream, and we have an awesome community who does watch live with us, also who watches in playback form in video and audio form. We do 5 days a week of Ravens coverage, Monday through Friday. We also do a ton of other stuff, bonus episodes, live reactions like this one. And I love doing the live reactions. I just wish that this one was under better circumstances. Obviously, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen were pretty neck and neck for MVP for this entire season. Really, at the end, felt like Lamar pulled through, but Josh Allen wins the award. We're going to react to it. We're going to dive into it. We're going to talk about why it happened. It was a bad awards night for the Ravens in general, even beyond the MVP. So we can talk about that as well. Man, it doesn't feel right. Now, Josh had a great season, right? I'm not going to sit here and say that. If you've been listening to me on Locked On Ravens, you know that I have been very consistent in saying these are two great quarterbacks, two very talented individuals. And if Lamar didn't have the season that he had this year, Josh would unequivocally be the MVP, in my opinion. But the issue is Lamar Jackson did have the season that he had. And here's where I will start this off with. Lamar Jackson having the season that he had, a historic year, a career best year. Lamar having the season that he had and not getting one award for it is a complete joke. It's a complete joke. I don't care what angle you want to take on this. A lot of talented players won awards. A lot of talented players did. Lamar Jackson is one of those talented players that should have won an award. And obviously, look, Josh Allen, congratulations to Josh. Saquon for Offensive Player of the Year. I think that people thought that he was going to win that award, and, it makes sense that he did. But Lamar finished second in Offensive Player of the Year voting as well. Derrick Henry finished fourth in that, by the way. But it just felt like this was what the NFL wanted. And I'm not trying to take it away from Josh. I'm really not. But when you look at it, we can be honest about a couple of different things here. Let's first pull up Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson's stats over the course of this season, because I think that that's where we should start. Now, I want to preface it by saying stats are not the only thing that go into the MVP award. And we talked about that all year long. Look, Josh did have one more win. The Bills had one more win than the Ravens and Lamar did. The Bills were the 2 seed. The Ravens were the 3 seed. That does carry weight. But my argument all season long has been, even if you want to put the argument that Josh did more with less, which, again, I do admit Josh had less of a talented group around him than Lamar did. I thought the Ravens did a pretty good job building that offense out around Lamar, and the Bills were expected to be in that rebuild year, this, that, and the other. That, to me, does not outweigh the statistical production that Lamar had this season. And I know people are getting mad, at least, different fans of different teams, about Lamar having the stat year that he had last season and winning the award. Lamar was by far and away the best player in the league last season. It wasn't even close. I know Tyreek, did Tyreek win the best player of the year award in terms of the top 100? But regardless, Lamar was the best player in the league last year, in my opinion. I think that Lamar was the best player in the league again this year. I just think that's what it was. And I'm just saying if, because there have been conspiracies that have been going on about this, and we have seen kind of talking heads talk about it this way. If the award was given to Josh Allen because Lamar had 2 and Josh had 0, that's just ridiculous, in my opinion. Josh had a great season. Give it to the guy that deserves the award. If these voters truly believed that Josh deserve the award. That's completely their opinion, completely their right, and okay. I don't agree with that opinion, but okay. If it's a pity award, essentially, and I see a lot of that in the comments, I mean, if it's a pity award, what are we doing? Voter fatigue, what are we doing? And I don't want to bring like basketball into this right now, but Nikola Jokic, I'm a Nuggets guy, went through the same exact thing with Joel Embiid, and I know a lot of people have compared the Lamar Josh Allen race this season to the Embiid Jokic conversation a couple of years ago, where Jokic was clearly the better player, had the better season, but the NBA wanted Embiid to win it. Embiid went on a whole media tour, and the NBA gave the award to Embiid. This feels like the same thing here with Josh Allen, because let's pull up the stats. I got sidetracked for a little bit. I apologize. Let's pull up the stats. Lamar Jackson, and on top of it all, he absolutely boat raced the Bills the only time they met up in the regular season. This is a regular season award. I don't want to hear anything about the playoffs. It was a regular season award, but we will get to the playoffs a little bit in terms of conspiracy a little later. Again, Lamar Jackson, better completion percentage, more passing yards per attempt, more pass yards per game, more passing touchdowns, less interceptions, better passer rating, more rushing yards, more rush yards per attempt. The only thing that Josh Allen had Lamar Jackson beat in this season was rushing touchdowns. That was 12-4. But then you can look at some of the other stuff. Lamar had 41 passing touchdowns compared to Josh's 28. He had almost 20 points better in terms of rating. He had a 3% clip in completion percentage. He had almost 500, or I guess a little over 400 more passing yards than Josh did. Again, we can argue all the other stuff about, okay, Josh had less and the Bills had one more win and the Bills were the higher seed and whatnot. But at the end of the day, that does not outweigh anything. And I also see a couple of good comments in the chat here. I want to pull up I don't know if I'll be able to find the first one, so I apologize. Here, I see A here saying, how's that Lamar's fault? I think that what is being referred to here is the less with more for Josh. I also don't necessarily fully agree with the fact that Lamar was being punished throughout the season for having Derrick Henry on his team. It felt like Derrick Henry being on Lamar Jackson's side ended up hurting Lamar's MVP case instead of being able to celebrate the fact that both players made each other better. The only narrative being pushed there was, oh, well, Derrick makes Lamar a better player, and Lamar's doing all this because of Derrick Henry, and that's why this is happening. Did we not see Lamar win 2 MVP awards without Derrick Henry? I mean, is 2019 and 2023 just a complete wash? Did that not happen? That, to me, wasn't a fair narrative in the first place. And I also want to bring up this here from King. Lamar did all that with a tougher schedule, and I know King said pull up the strength of schedule too. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. Actually, I might have a note that I wrote down potentially. Let me actually see if I can find it. Here we go. Other things that Lamar Jackson had over Josh Allen. Mina Kimes did a really good job. We talked about this about a month ago on her show. She dove into some of the analytics stuff, some of the advanced stats. In terms of DVOA, in terms of opponent, Lamar Jackson, 51%. That was tops in the league. Josh Allen was 26%. That was third. Strength of schedule, which King talked about. Lamar had the fifth. He was fifth in strength of schedule in terms of fifth hardest. Josh Allen was 19th. And Mina did vote for Lamar. We know who voted for who. We'll get into that a little bit in the second part of the show, because I know people are wondering, how did people vote? Who did people vote for? And Mina said that she's going to vote Lamar. At least at the time, she said she was going to vote Lamar because of strength of schedule. He's also leading in all those stat categories, Mina said. Diana Rossini also said she was leaning towards Lamar. And part of it is just big moments, right? Josh had a couple of big moments this season, like that Chiefs run and a couple of others. Lamar had moments as well. I think the Christmas game against Houston was huge. The Pittsburgh game as well. It just, to me, feels like the fact that these voters, here's the crazy part. These voters voted Lamar as a first-team All-Pro, and then they turned around and voted him second for MVP. Where's the correlation with that? Did voters say, and I'm not saying this happened, but here's one of my, I guess we'll do a conspiracy here first, and I don't know, put on the tinfoil hat. We can do that right now. Did voters say, well, we're going to give Lamar the AP, the All-Pro first team, we'll do that. But then we're going to turn around because Josh had a good year too, and we're just going to give Josh the MVP so both guys can have something. That, to me, is not the way to do it. If the first-team All-Pro quarterback is the first-team All-Pro quarterback, it is historic, by the way, that the first team All-Pro quarterback did not win the MVP. You got to go back a little bit to find that happening. And in some instances, some of the categories of that have never happened before. So, look, MVP every year, the award, it gets warped, I would say. The criteria changes, which is why, to me, I want to separate everything. Like, again, fans are complaining. Some fans of other teams are complaining that, oh, well, Lamar didn't have the stats last season, so why should stats matter this season? The difference is that Lamar and Josh, in my opinion, were 1 and 2 in terms of best player in the league. And it was actually kind of close. Like, I thought Josh had a great season. I thought Lamar was better, but it wasn't like, oh, Lamar was by far and away the best player in the league this year. I thought Josh was number 2, and it wasn't a runaway for Lamar. The difference last season was that Lamar was the best player in the league, and it was not close at all. So there's a lot more to dive into here about this whole conversation. I mean, there's still so much I haven't touched on yet and talked about. We'll talk into actually how close this MVP race was. We have the official numbers on that. We will also dive into who voted for who, some of the narratives that are coming out right now, and so much more. So don't go anywhere. We have so much to get to on this instant reaction live late night edition of Locked On Ravens. We will be right back. First, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on a coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field. And the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets to the Super Bowl, that is icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. We're back, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher instantly reacting live right about 11:15 p.m. Eastern time. Appreciate everybody for tuning in if you are here with me live. I like doing the live shows, and now that the season is over, we react to every single Ravens game, but we're not going to have one of those for a while. So I like getting on the lives, doing them when we can. I thought this was pretty big news, pretty historic news. Lamar Jackson does not win his 3rd MVP. Josh Allen wins the award. I like to do this as well. Tell me where you're tuning in from. I love seeing the community we've built up here on Locked On Ravens. If you're an everydayer, if you're new to the channel, if you're somewhere in the middle, really appreciate everybody for tuning in to the show tonight. And if you're tuning in after the fact in video or audio form, really appreciate you as well. The audio, video community, social media, subtext, absolutely incredible. We're only going up here on Locked On Ravens. And by the way, in season and off season, doesn't matter. All year round, we're 5 days a week over here on Locked On Ravens. Now, let's get into how close this thing actually was, because it was pretty crazy. Josh Allen, he got 27 first-place votes, 22 second-place votes, 1 third-place vote. Now, that equates to 383 points. Lamar Jackson got 23 first-place votes, 26 second-place votes, and 1 fourth-place vote, 362 points. By the way, fourth place for the year that Lamar Jackson had is utterly ridiculous, in my opinion. And just for icing on the cake, we know who that is. We know who it is. And that is Jim Miller, who is a Sirius XM NFL radio host. He is a former quarterback. I'm going to pull up his stats right now because he played. I'm trying to pull up what he actually. I had the page. I lost it. Here we go. Jim Miller, 37 games, a 15-12 quarterback record. He had 36 touchdowns and 31 interceptions over the course of his career. He played for the Steelers for 2 years and the Bears for 4 years. Jim Miller was the one who voted Lamar Jackson for 4th place. Now, just to talk about who other people voted for, people who voted for Lamar Jackson included Mike Thando, Mike Jones, Doug Farrar, Nate Davis, Dan Pompey. Who else voted for Lamar here? Mike Florio voted for Lamar. He actually admitted that he was going to. Mike Tirico did. Aaron Schatz, who we had on last season, he was the one. Aaron Schatz was the one voter last year who did not vote for Lamar. He voted for Josh Allen, but he voted for Lamar this season. Tony Dungy did. Danny Rossini, Kay Adams, Sam Monson, Tom Brady, Teddy Bruschi, Mina Kimes, Some of the people who voted for Josh Allen include Emmanuel Acho, Dan Orlovsky. Who else voted for Josh here? I'm not seeing a lot of names right now. Guys like Ben Vollen voted for Josh. Pete Prisco voted for Josh. Michael Silver, Jonathan Jones. Who else? Adam Shine. Chris Sims voted for Josh Allen. Lindsey Jones, Rich Gannon. So those are just some of the names who voted for Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen. I just look, first or second place, that's fine. Jim Miller putting Lamar in fourth place is ridiculous and honestly just absolutely disrespectful. And by the way, just some of the records Lamar Jackson had in 2024, it was the first quarterback ever to throw for 4,000 plus yards and rush for 900 plus yards. First quarterback ever to have 40 plus touchdown passes and fewer than 5 interceptions. He had 119.6 passer rating, fourth best in NFL history. Shout out to Sarah Ellison for putting that together, because I think that really does highlight and encapsulate the historical season Lamar Jackson had, and coming out of that with nothing. And again, Lamar, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong here. I don't think he showed up to the award ceremony in the first place. Clearly just, didn't want to be there. And I think he made that clear that, it's kind of whatever to him. He doesn't really want to win he doesn't care if he wins. He made it clear that if he did win, it'd be an honor and this, that, and the other, but he was not at the ceremony, at least from what I could tell. So clearly sent a message there. And I just feel like the way that Lamar Jackson was able to go in and week out and dominate, because people are right. This is not just a on the field award, a stats award, whatever it may be. This is also an impact award. And what I mean by that is the eye test. And both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have absolutely blown that category away. But when you turn on Lamar Jackson film versus when you turn on Josh Allen film, both guys immediately stick out to you. 1,000%. It's happened to me. You turn on that film and you immediately see the impact that both Lamar and Josh Allen have, right? 1,000%. But the way that Lamar Jackson just pops, he just pops. And that's another thing where even if you want to call that a tie between Lamar and Josh Allen, because both guys do have an incredible way of making plays happen, both with their arm and with their legs. I think both these guys are awesome. And again, if Lamar didn't have the season that he had, then Josh would be the MVP and it wouldn't be close. But it just feels like robbing a player of an award that he deserves to push a different narrative, right? That to me is what it is. Now, I have nothing but respect for Josh Allen. I have nothing but respect for Lamar Jackson. I want to continue to make that clear because I don't want to have this show come off as like I'm disrespecting Josh Allen for 30, 35 minutes. I don't want to do that. I think Josh is an incredible player. But when you look at the season that Lamar had, the stats being as they weren't like completely lopsided, but they weren't necessarily close in a lot of categories there versus one win versus, one seed and something of Josh had to do more with less, which I don't think is wrong. That doesn't outweigh it for me. It doesn't outweigh it for me. So look, it's disappointing for sure. Obviously you would have loved to see Lamar win this award, especially because I think he was so deserving. And again, I just can't get over the fact that it just feels like because the voters voted for Lamar as a first team All-Pro, they turned around and said, well, now we're going to vote for Josh Allen here. And it wasn't everybody. Again, this was a very close race. And I had said that from the jump where I'm like, look, this is not going to be the unanimous or near unanimous Lamar Jackson MVP races of the past because both players had unbelievable seasons, right? Unreal. But Lamar is someone that we're going to look back on this season. Look, stats-wise, you say Lamar deserves the MVP award more this season than last season, right? And even, look, guys like Torrey Smith are coming out of the woodwork saying having top 5 quarterback season ever, not winning MVP is wild, but Josh Allen had a great season. He's a good dude. That's what I feel like. Look, Josh has had a great season. But the fact that Baltimore lost the way that they did, obviously that's kind of like the gut punch. That doesn't impact the MVP. The MVP is a regular season award. It is. Lamar would have made all sorts of history with a third MVP. He would have been catapulted into a whole different conversation tier if you want a third MVP. So I just don't want Lamar to get hate because he didn't win the MVP this season, right? That's what it is. I don't want that to be the conversation tomorrow afternoon. And I'm sure we're going to do a bonus episode on Saturday just because there's probably going to be so much to talk about with this whole thing for a couple of days, but then it goes away. But the way that it all happened is just, it's kind of shocking. It's almost like an upset in a way. And look, Josh got it. That's awesome. Lamar has 2. Josh Allen has 1. I did say Josh was going to be an MVP in the future. I didn't think it would be this season, but here we are. And Josh Allen beats out Lamar Jackson for the MVP. So that is what it is. But we also have more to talk about because it wasn't just the MVP that the Ravens didn't have a great night in. The Ravens also didn't have any Hall of Famers put in. Other guys missed out on awards as well. So be sure to stay tuned. We have plenty to talk about here on this instant reaction edition of Locked on Ravens. First, this show is sponsored by Betterhelp. What do you want your 2025 story to be? Every January brings a new chapter, 365 blank pages waiting for you to fill. If there's a part of your life you want to rewrite or a plot twist you've been craving, why wait? Life isn't about fleeting resolutions. It's about taking control and becoming the author of your own story. Think of therapy as your personal editor, helping you craft the life you deserve. It's not just for crisis situations. Therapy can help you develop healthier coping strategies, improve your relationships, and empower you to be the best version of yourself. Whether you're facing a challenge or just looking for personal growth, therapy is a powerful tool to help guide your journey, whether it's learning how to set boundaries or tackling stress in new ways. Therapy can help you develop skills for a better tomorrow. Even if you never tried therapy, the benefits are clear. Finding someone to talk to and gaining fresh perspectives can make all the difference in how you navigate life's ups and downs. Write your story with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off the first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. We are back. Locked on Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still talking Lamar Jackson losing out on the MVP award to Josh Allen. So Josh gets that award. Lamar does not. Lamar does not get Offensive Player of the Year. Lamar Jackson does not get FedEx Air Player of the Year. Nothing. 0. Nothing. So disappointing for sure. Lamar had a great season, and I think that we should remember it as such. Josh Allen did as well, and obviously that will be remembered by his MVP. So to me, I think the big part here, by the way, hit that like and subscribe button in video form and audio form. We do 5 days a week plus more daily Ravens coverage. But the thing with me and the Ravens is now you have to look ahead. All right, the MVP was certainly a spirited discussion, certainly over the course of, really became a big thing a couple months ago. It wasn't that toxic. And I think people don't really remember what it was like early on in the season because Lamar wasn't at the front early in the season. Ravens had a rough start to the year. And Josh was in that conversation because the Bills started 3-0. But this is what I want to kind of drive home because I talked about this a lot. The Ravens just, again, beat the Bills bad. And it feels like that was not taken into account whatsoever. I think that personally that holds weight. Now, some MVP voters agreed with that. Others do not. I personally think that why should we forget about that? Because if you remember last season, the MVP award, it was coming down to Lamar Jackson and Brock Purdy. It was the big Christmas night game. And all the talk that week leading up to that game was, oh, well, whoever wins this game is going to win the MVP. That was a Christmas game. That was late in the season. And the NFL is what have you done for me now lately league. And I get that. And Josh had those moments, by the way, right? Josh had that moment. Chiefs game. That was a massive MVP moment for Josh Allen. Lamar also had those moments, though. Right? Lamar did. Because, again, as I talked about earlier in the show, the Christmas Day game, I thought was a big statement. That was an absolute beatdown of Houston. Despite the fact that Houston and, that defense, which Josh Allen, it was a different Houston team back in, September? A lot of different players. But Josh Allen had what? Was that his 9 for 30 game? I can't remember if that was his 9 for 30 game. But, again, the fact that game was in September between the Ravens and the Bills, I don't think it should have that big of a difference. I don't think that, we should just be saying, well, that game was in September. It doesn't matter. When we were talking about the head-to-head being a key talking point in the MVP conversation, and then Lamar obviously beats down San Francisco, and, no one questioned that it was Lamar's award. I know there was some about Dak, some about Josh, but Josh had 20-plus turnovers last season? Lamar took a step. And again, Lamar has to feel very proud about where his season went. Playoff-wise, it happened, right? The Ravens lost to Buffalo. I get it. But Lamar has to be very proud of the way that he was able to grow this season. I thought in almost every single category, Lamar took a step forward and showed growth. And I think that he can build on that for next season. Sure, it's disappointing that he's not going to, have an MVP to cherish or anything. But again, I really don't think Lamar cares all that much. He's made it very clear that he wants to win a ring. I'm sure he would trade his MVPs for a Super Bowl. And I think all of Baltimore would too. If Lamar signs off on it, then all Baltimore can sign off on it too. But it honestly was kind of a shock based off of how the conversation, because it teetered, right? It teetered all year, especially in those final months, right? I just think that the way that the MVP award goes, sometimes voter fatigue is a thing. And I don't like the idea of voter fatigue because, as I've mentioned, the whole point of an award is to give it to the person or player or whoever that deserves that award. But then you see things like CBS Sports, who went full stop for Josh Allen all season long. The NFL putting out a should Josh Allen win MVP video today. Today they did it. It's like, oh, is Josh going to win the MVP? So it felt like that narrative was being pushed. Again, that's the tinfoil hat conspiracy that I'm seeing pushed right now on social media. So I don't know. You also can look at the division. I see some of those comments in the chat as well, where the Ravens had to go through Pittsburgh twice, who, again, offense was spotty. I was not a fan of Pittsburgh's offense, but you go through Pittsburgh and that defense twice. Cincinnati, who you had to, absolute just master classes from Lamar in that game. It was the defense in those two Cincinnati games. And then Cleveland, you lose to Cleveland once. That was a bad loss. I'll be the first to tell you that. Then you're able to get the job done in Week 18, although, again, the Ravens were a much better team than Cleveland at that point. Whereas the Bills had the Jets, the Dolphins, the Patriots. That doesn't necessarily inspire confidence. So, again, Josh had a great season, 1,000%. 1,000%. He had the worst offensive supporting staff, but Lamar also, we shouldn't be punishing him. And plus, the way that people talk about like James Cook and Khalil Shakir, even Deion Dawkins talked about it. It's at Radio Row. He said he was trying to say like, oh, no disrespect to my guys, but essentially he said they're trash compared to the Ravens, which I don't get why you're making that argument. But it's whatever. It's whatever. Both guys have MVPs now. Both guys still have not advanced to a Super Bowl. Obviously, that's the goal for both of these players. I'm sure Josh would also trade his MVP for a Super Bowl. So we'll see. And again, the conversation now, what I would like to see is these players talked about in a same conversation if you're going to put them there. Because if the argument is now Josh has an MVP and he's now in that category with Lamar, if you want to have that conversation, then okay, let's have the same energy for Josh and for Lamar. That to me is a fair thing. I just want to see everybody praised and criticized fairly. I think guys should get praised when they deserve it. Guys should be criticized when they deserve it. I just feel like Lamar gets a lot more of that criticism. So congratulations to Josh. He won the award. Again, I don't necessarily agree with it, as you probably can tell, but it is how it is. And we'll see how these guys can respond heading into next season. Now, the Ravens weren't, it wasn't only the MVP that the Ravens got snubbed on. Terrell Suggs and Marshall Yanda, both not elected for the Hall of Fame. Only 4 players got into the Hall of Fame, which is honestly pretty crazy if you think about it. Now, Marshall Yanda and Terrell Suggs, definite arguments for them to be first ballot Hall of Famers. But Sterling Sharp, Jared Allen, Antonio Gates, those guys, all super deserving. Eric Allen as well was the 4th. He also very, very deserving. Smallest Hall of Fame class since 2005. 2005. So Steve Smith also did not get in. He was not a first ballot guy. But regardless, tough night for the Ravens. Again, Derrick Henry wins nothing. You got Kyle Hamilton finishing 9th in Defensive Player of the Year, but it was always going to be Pat Surtain, in my opinion. Hamilton wasn't going to beat Hamilton. I think next year has a real shot to win Defensive Player of the Year for sure. Then you have Nate Wiggins. He finished 11th in Rookie of the Year voting, Defensive Rookie of the Year voting. Jaden Daniels obviously won Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jared Verse won Defensive Rookie of the Year. So yeah, just not the night that a lot of Ravens fans envisioned, which is disappointing. And I do want to commemorate. I think tomorrow on tomorrow's show, which will come out in now a couple hours, I want to kind of commemorate Lamar's season a little bit because it was historic in so many different ways. Again, this man had 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. You know, you got to put some respect on that. Plus the fact that he was able to go up to that 45 total touchdown threshold. He passed for over 4,000 yards. He had that over 900-yard rushing season. You know what could have won it for Lamar? And this maybe is my other tinfoil hat conspiracy. If Lamar had gotten to 1,000 rushing yards and had the 4,000, 1,000, I feel like that could have pushed him over the top. I feel like that could have done it. But it really just felt like this is what the media wanted for the most part. This is what the NFL wanted for the most part. And I'm not trying to take the award away from Josh. It's not an indictment on Josh, is what I'm trying to say here, right? It's not. It's more of an indictment on how the conversation played out over the course of the season, the narratives that were being pushed. So, yeah, I just feel like Lamar deserved more recognition for the season he had, even if it was winning Offensive Player of the Year. I think Lamar deserved the MVP. And honestly, I think everybody had kind of penciled in Saquon for that Offensive Player of the Year. So, again, not taking anything away from Saquon either. He certainly deserved that award. And, you know, Josh had a season. And if Lamar didn't have the season he had, Josh would have deserved the award. And I still think Josh deserved, like, it's different. Josh and Lamar both deserve the award. I think Lamar deserved it more. But, you know, Josh is the one that will walk away with it. So here we are. Lamar Jackson, still 2-time MVP, still very impressive. And, again, we'll get more into on tomorrow's show. Lamar Jackson, his season, and also some very spicy comments from some former Ravens, maybe even on Josh Allen. So that's all I have here today on this live edition of Locked On Ravens. But we have a lot coming your way tomorrow. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe button in video form and follow along in audio form. We'll be back here tomorrow talking more Ravens football as we always do. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you right back in tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.